Hi, I'm Rick. Welcome to the Campfire. As you prepare to listen to my story, let's take a moment to get comfortable and settle in. Close your eyes. I want you to take a deep breath in. Hold it for a moment. As you slowly exhale, feel your body relax and release any tension you're holding inside. Now, imagine yourself sitting around a campfire in the middle of the night. The air around you is cool and crisp, but the warm glow of the fire keeps you cozy and safe. You can hear the sounds of nature all around you, from the rustling of the leaves, the gentle chirping of the crickets, to the crackling of the fire. As you gaze into the fire, you feel a sense of peace and tranquility wash over you. The flames dance and flicker, casting a warm and inviting glow around you. You can see the colors of the flames, from the bright oranges and yellows to the deeper reds and purples. As you watch the flames, you begin to notice the intricate patterns that they create. The flames seem to be dancing to a beautiful rhythm, moving and swaying in perfect harmony. You can feel your mind becoming calmer and more relaxed with each passing moment. As you continue to watch the fire, you start to notice the different smells that are emanating from it. The aroma of burning wood is comforting and soothing. It feels like a warm hug for your senses. You can feel yourself sinking deeper and deeper into a state of relaxation and calm. As you sit there, you begin to feel a sense of connection with the fire. You feel the energy and warmth radiating from the flames, and it feels like it's filling your body with light and positivity. You can feel your stress and anxiety melting away, leaving you feeling peaceful and centered. Take a moment to appreciate the calming energy of the fire. Allow yourself to feel grateful for its presence and the peace and tranquility it brings to your mind and your body. As you sit there lost in thought, you feel calm and relaxed. Your mind is free of any worries or distractions. The fire is a comforting presence, lulling you into a peaceful slumber. Allow yourself to drift off to sleep with the warm and comforting image of the campfire in your mind and my voice in your ears. You feel your body sinking deeper and deeper into relaxation, and your mind begins to slow down as you feel a wave of calm wash over you. Now, let's begin the story. Once upon a time, a brave young prince was riding with his friends. He playfully ran far ahead of them, galloping across a field that had recently been plowed, and he turned his horse down a grassy road that led to a forest. He trotted along for a while, expecting to hear his friends shouting and hollering behind him at any moment. But they took a wrong turn, and the only sound he heard was the pounding of his horse's hooves. Suddenly he heard an ugly snarl and a short bark, and he looked down to see a gray wolf snapping at the heels of his horse. His horse was scared and was about to bolt at any moment, so the young prince bent down and hit the wolf with his whip. Not long after that, an angry voice yelled, "How dare you hit my pet?" A short distance ahead, a mean old witch stood on the side of the road. The wolf hid behind her skirt and showed its long yellow teeth. pet," exclaimed the prince. "Don't let him touch my horse or I'll hit him again." "At your own risk, Prince," the witch said. The prince then turned his horse around and galloped back. She shouted, "You will regret today. You will regret today." Now, by the time the prince got back to the plowed field and the big road, his friends had run so far ahead that he couldn't see them anymore. He thought he could catch up if he took a shortcut, so he turned down a side road that went around the forest where he had met the witch. He soon started to feel very thirsty. When the prince saw an old farmer's wife in the fields, he asked her where he could find a roadside spring. This old farmer's wife was the witch in a different form. She curtsied and told him that the best spring in the county was in the woods. So that he wouldn't waste any time, he begged her to take him to the water. The witch was happy that the prince had been so easy to win over. He had no idea that she was leading him back to the forest and had just put a spell on the water. When they got to the pool, the prince got off his horse and kneeled by the edge. He made a cup with his hands and drank until he was no longer thirsty. He was about to grab his horse again by the bridle and climb back up to the saddle when a terrible pain shot through his body. Darkness flashed before his eyes. His arms grew longer and became branches. His fingers became twigs. His feet shot into the ground. He found himself turned into a giant elm tree. He was a giant elm and was stuck that way. His friends looked for him for a long time, but they couldn't find him. They gave up and said he was lost, and a new prince took over the land. The elm tree tried many times to tell people what was wrong, but no one ever seemed to understand what he was saying. When simple woodcutters went into the big, dark forest, he would always tell them his story and shout, "I'm the prince! I'm the prince!" But all the woodcutters could hear was the wind in the trees. He stayed a tree through the cold winter, when the sky was pitch black and the stars sparkled like ice. And how nice it was when spring came and the birds started talking again. The first year, a pair of wood pigeons moved into his highest branches and made a home there. Even though he couldn't talk, the prince was happy to see them because he could understand what trees and birds said. On the last day of that summer, the pigeons told him, "Tonight the king of the trees comes through the woods. Can't you hear the noise in the forest? All the real trees are getting ready for the king to come back. They are shaking their branches and shedding their dead leaves." The prince said, "Tell me about the king." The doves replied, "He is tall, dark, and strong. He lives far in the north in a big pine. On Midsummer Eve, he goes all over the world to check on the tree people and make sure everything is okay." The prince asked, "Do you think he could help me?" "You could ask him," the dove said. Midsummer Eve's long, long twilight ended, and night covered the world with its starry curtains. At 12 o'clock there wasn't a breeze blowing, but the trees shook as if there was a strong wind. The rustling of the leaves made strange and beautiful music, and soon the king of the trees entered the dark forest. He was as tall, dark, and majestic as the wood doves had said. "Are you doing well, my people?" In a voice as sweet and solemn as the wind in the trees on a summer day, the king spoke. "Yes, everything is fine," said the trees in a soft voice, even though some of the trees said, "I lost a branch," and a small tree complained, My neighbors are blocking all of my sunlight." The king said, "Then farewell, my people, until next Midsummer's Eve." He was about to keep walking through the dark woods when the prince called out to him. "Stay, King of the Trees," cried the poor prince. "Even though I'm not one of you, please listen to me. I'm a prince who lives in the real world, but a wicked witch has turned me into a tree. Can't you help me?" "I'm sorry, poor friend, but I can't help," said the king. "However, do not despair. As I go around the world, I'll find someone who can help you for sure. Look for me on next Midsummer's Eve." So the big elm shook his branches in a sad way, and the king kept moving. The seasons changed and changed again. Winter returned, and it was cold, dark, and quiet. Spring finally sprung, and a young woman who lived with a family of woodcutters would often rest in the shade of the big tree. Her father used to be a wealthy merchant, but he had a stroke of bad luck. When he died, the only people who could take care of the little girl were a family of rough woodcutters who worked for the king. These grumpy people kept the poor maid always busy and gave her the hardest chores around the house. She would speak of her troubles when relaxing in the shade of the big tree, and when the prince heard her whole sad story, he felt very sorry for her and began to fall in love with her. As for the unhappy maiden, it seemed to her that she could find peace and happiness nowhere else but under the big elm tree. Now it was common for woodcutters to cut down trees in the summer that they would need for the winter. One day the woodcutter whose family the young woman lived with told her that he was going to cut down the big elm. "Not the big elm that towers over the whole forest?" the girl asked. "Yes, that tree," the woodcutter said in a gruff voice. "Tomorrow morning we'll cut it down, and tomorrow night we'll use its branches to build a midsummer fire. What's the matter with you, you stupid girl?" "Oh, please don't cut down the big elm," the good maiden begged. "Don't be silly," said the woodcutter. "I bet you've been doing nothing under its branches. I'll definitely chop down that tree in the morning." You can be sure that the girl thought about how to save the big tree all night. Since she was as smart as she was good, she came up with a plan. On midsummer morn, she got up early and ran into the forest, where she climbed into the big elm and hid in its top branches. She could see the rest of the forest below her and the faraway peaks of the Adamant Mountains. She was happy to hear the birds singing at dawn. An hour after the sun came up, she heard the woodcutter and his men coming through the forest. Soon the group got to the base of the tree. The poor prince was nervous when he saw the sharp axes that were intended to kill him. The head woodcutter said, "I'll be the first to hit," and he raised his axe into the air. Suddenly, a voice rang out from the top of the tree. "Throw the axe down and harm not me. I am an enchanted tree. He who strikes shall breathe his last before Midsummer Eve has passed." "There's a ghost in the tree," screamed the woodcutters. "Let's get out of here quickly before it hurts us." Even though the head woodcutter tried to stop them, they ran as fast as their legs could carry them. The chief woodcutter, on the other hand, was braver and picked up the axe again. As the sun sparkled on the raised blade, the maiden sang again. "Throw the axe down, harm not me. I am an enchanted tree. He who strikes shall breathe his last before Midsummer Eve has passed." When the chief heard the voice again, he felt a little bit scared, but he didn't back down. Instead, he stood his ground and raised the axe a third time. The girl once again sang, "Throw the axe down and harm not me. I am an enchanted tree. He who strikes shall breathe his last before Midsummer Eve has passed." At that moment, the elm tree managed to drop a big branch that hit the chief woodcutter on his shoulders with a loud thud. Now, that really scared the chief woodcutter, and he ran away. The girl hid in the tree all day because she was afraid he would come back. At dusk, she was so tired that she fell asleep for a long time. She fell asleep, but just before midnight, she heard an angry voice yell, "Come down from that tree, you wicked, deceitful girl, or I shall cut it down at once." The poor girl looked down through the branches and saw the woodcutter standing at the base of the tree. This frightened her. His left hand held a lantern, and his right shoulder was where the sharpest axe rested. When he got home, he didn't find the maiden there, so he figured that it was her voice that scared his men away. "Come down," yelled the mean woodcutter. "I'll show you, you little scamp, how to trick me. 1, 2, 3. He lifted his axe into the air and was about to smash it into the elm's trunk when he heard the mysterious murmur that meant the king of the trees was coming. Again, scared and confused, the head woodcutter dropped his axe. Soon he saw 2 people coming through the quiet forest toward him. The man let out a terrified howl and was about to run away, but the older of the newcomers lifted his wand and froze him in place. The 2 people were the king of the trees and his new friend, a powerful wizard. "Come down and don't be afraid, young lady," said the king of the trees. "You have done well. Your bad luck is over, and a better day is coming." So the brave girl quickly climbed down the tree and stood in front of the magician and the king. She was very pretty in her country dress and bows. The mighty wizard lifted his wand and solemnly touched the elm's trunk. There was a blinding flash of red fire, and the big tree seemed to shrink and fall apart. Soon, the prince was standing in front of them. The enchanter said, "Welcome, Prince. The witch, who was your enemy, will no longer bother you. I've turned her into an owl and set her free into the sky. As for you," the enchanter said with a fierce look at the woodcutter, "you will be a green monkey until you plant and grow as many trees as you cut down." A moment later, a green monkey swung up into the trees. The grateful prince thanked the king of the trees, the mighty wizard, and the brave maiden with all his heart. I'm happy to say that the prince got his castle back. He married the young maiden who had saved his life, and together they lived happily ever after.